Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Last week, hope you guys were excited with the end of the last video we had. Obviously, we got a red MR2. It is not my MR2, and this one has a 2GR in there, so very excited to see that. My first time driving a 2GR swapped MR2, to be honest with you. I've heard tons of stories, and if it's worth anything, if I had to do it again, I would probably not do a turbo swap, but I'd definitely do 2GR. It just feels right. It's a lot of torque. It just screams. So that's all I can say. I drove it for 10 miles to my house, and it was just a great experience. Now, the reason why this car is here, the alternator went out, and we've troubleshooted everything. It's a brand new alternator that's in there, but for whatever reason, it seems like it's failed. So if you're familiar with the platform, you probably know that swapping an alternator on a 2GR is probably not the easiest thing to do. Actually, not very well documented either. There's one guy who did it on YouTube. He drained the coolant, he took the AC compressor out, had to drain the freon, everything, just to get this alternator out. I'm gonna try a different approach, hopefully it works. So let's see. Now, what I'm gonna do is, I'll show you the car real quickly, but I'm gonna take this side scoop out so I can actually look on the side and see exactly what's going on, because when I show you on top, you're kind of blinded by how the alternator sits in there. The good news is I have an engine on the stand, so I can kind of navigate exactly where everything is by just looking at the engine on the stand and then go into the car. But let's see how this goes, guys. I'm hoping it's not too painful a process, but only one way to find out. Let's just go ahead and do it. So as I mentioned, it really helps to have an engine on the stand so you can kind of navigate what's going on. Plus, filming in that engine bay, you guys are probably not going to see much, so I'm going to kind of demonstrate on the engine on the rack. Then I'm going to do it on the car so you guys get a feel, because we're hoping this is like a tutorial. So if I bring it over to the engine, we have the alternator right here. And one of the first things we want to do is, this is direct power from the battery. This is the plug connection for the alternator. So when we get to the car, we're going to have to disconnect this live 12 volt. We're going to have to unplug this. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery, because if you're working with an alternator, you probably don't want to have live power. Then the next thing is we got two bolts, one right here and then one right on the bottom, right over here. So these two bolts, this one and this one, this is what we need to do to disconnect this alternator from the engine. We're going to have to take off the belt. So you're going to get a 14 millimeter. You're going to go on your tensioner, bring it anti-clockwise. That's going to loosen the tension on the belt. You can get the belt off. So belt off first, well, power off, disconnect the battery, remove the belt. Then we're going to start to pull these two bolts right here. Now, if you look over here on the inside, kind of hard to see, but there's a bracket right above the AC compressor bolts to the block and the alternator. Most of the cars don't have them. In hindsight, I bought this bracket just to put it on my engine, but this car, luckily for me, does not have this bracket, so I don't have to contend with this because it's very, very difficult to get to. Yeah, so different angle on this bracket, as I was talking about. You know, normally you don't get this bracket when you buy your engine, but you should really buy it if you want to put this engine back kind of OEM. So on the car, I said is not there, so I don't have to contend with trying to remove that. But imagine if that bracket was on, even if I pull that bolt, then taking it out of the engine bay, that just gets in the way and is one more obstruction to take out of a very small cavity back there. So for now, I think I just need to pull these two and these two, and then the alternator is free. And then the rest is, how do I get it out of this engine bay? I may need to move this thermostat housing, but I'm hoping I don't. I may have to remove the engine mount, but I'm hoping I don't. So I don't know, but I'm gonna get started here. I'm gonna start taking off the belt, disconnect the power, and start pulling those two bolts. All right, so I have my tester. So there's my direct 12 volt supply showing. I'm gonna go to the front. I'm gonna disconnect the battery because I want to confirm everything is disconnected. So let me run to the front and I'll come right back. Now, lucky for me, this car has a battery cutoff switch. This looks like one from a boat or something. So it's on all right now. If I just go to off, that's gonna cut the power in the back, which I'll show you guys right now. Okay, so we got the battery disconnected in the front and the light is off, and I'm confirming it. So first thing first, guys, make sure you don't work on this thing with live power. So that's what we're gonna disconnect. Now I'm gonna go get the belt off. That's gonna be hard to film, but you saw what I did on the engine bay, so that's the next step. All right, so to be able to film this, I'm gonna take the side scoop off because we gotta look up in the side here. Otherwise, it's literally impossible to film. And then I'm gonna also use this axis to kind of navigate. I don't know if the alternator can fit coming out this way, but that's also an option I'm thinking about. So this side piece goes on, there are a bunch of clips. You guys have seen me take these out before, but essentially got 2 nuts right here, and then it goes in with these 2 clips. There's a screw on the back, which goes up under here. And then there's a little bolt on the bottom here, and another one, well, it snaps in at the bottom on this side, and then this simply really just pops out. So you just take your time, work it out, and then this piece comes out. And everything came off good. This normally goes right about here, but whatever, we'll deal with that. Then I'm gonna pull these in so we can look inside here. So if you look in here, you look all the way up inside, now we get to see what we're working with. I'm on the top. If you see, this is the bolt. So again, going through the scoop, it just gives me a lot more visibility so I can see what's going on. It also gives me the amount of clearance. It shows me the amount of clearance I have to work with. So obviously this hose and the thermostat housing is getting in the way. I'm still gonna pull it, and then hopefully by some means this thing will fall out. If it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to take the thermostat off. But if you look, kind of see one bolt here and the other bolt is better back here. Now I'm on the top, I'm looking down, I can't see anything, but for you guys that are looking through the scoop, you definitely see much better, you have better visibility on what we need to pull. So there's one here and there's one back here somewhere that I can actually see if I work from the bottom. So let's see if we can get the alternator out without pulling this. If not, then we're gonna have to pull this, which means we'll have to drain the coolant, bleed the coolant, or put it back in. But again, hopefully that works. To me, I think it's a better option than trying to drain Freon and remove the AC system. And again, this is all experimental, so we're doing this live. We don't know if it's gonna work, but we're gonna try. Now I'm gonna pull the lower alternator bolt. Now, obviously I can get it from the top, but I'll be doing it blindly. With this, I can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna take my time, put this thing on. Got 2 long extensions, and I'm gonna go at it and hope this thing cracks. Yep, and there you go, I got it loose. So if you look in the visual, you see what's going on. So there you go. And now all I gotta do is pull the top one. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna probably pull the top one out first because I have better access here. And then once I pull the top one and pull this one, the alternator should be free. Then the challenge is how do we shake it out of this car. All right, so it's very small quarters, but I'm getting the 10mm nut off the alternator for that straight power. So there it is. And now I have the electricals disconnected from the alternator. There you go. Now, let me see if I can move this over here. I don't want to mess with the AC plug. So if I can slip this over here, then I get this out of the way. So now we can focus on moving the alternator that side. So now let's get the top alternator bolt out and hope for the best. Top bolt is loose. Now to finish up the bottom bolt. All right, we got the lower bolt out and the upper bolt is loose. So technically the alternator is disconnected. How do I get it out from that little crevice? Well, let's see. This goes in the way. All right, guys, so plan B, I got this close to slipping it out, but the coolant hose, the radiator hose, well, actually the coolant hose, because it's not a radiator, it's in the front. But basically the line that runs from the radiator all the way and comes up on the right side of the engine, that's getting in the way. I could probably muscle it out, but getting the new one back in is going to be a challenge. So I'm just going to remove that hose. Coolant is going to drain. Hopefully it's not too much. We'll have to see. I covered up the AC compressor. So now I'm pulling the clamp and we're going to drain the fluid. And then, fingers crossed, this alternator should slip right out and I can get it out. All right, so I pulled the hose. Luckily, there was not a lot, and then I just plugged the line here. So I got to remember to unplug this when I'm putting it back on. So yeah, but for now, not too much coolant coming out. So I'm gonna move this hose across, and fingers crossed, guys, this is gonna work. So let me try again. All right, minimizing coolant loss here, so I'm just gonna plug these two lines. So now, actually that's not bad. To be honest with you, I'm going to coolant loss, and if I'd plugged it before, it would have been a much better situation, but the alternator is out. Now I just gotta get it through here or through the scoop. So let's see if it will fit. All right, so you gotta be patient and just do like a little trick like this. And boom, there you go. So again, we haven't installed it yet, but if you're trying to remove your alternator from a 2GR, honestly, that wasn't too painful. So just pull the coolant hose. You don't have to drain everything. You don't have to remove your AC compressor, none of that stuff. And there it is. This is the old one. So let's see what's going on here, and then we're going to replace it with a new one. All right, guys, so let's talk about this alternator. So here's the old one that we suspect is not working. We hope it's not working because the battery light is on. The car does not charge. So obviously if you drive it, the battery dies. Now, I know this has a clutch system inside. When I turn this pulley, if you look here, it's turning, but nothing is turning inside. So more than likely, this clutch probably failed. Because if I turn this one, you can see it's turning inside. So again, I know there's a clutch system on these alternators, but the fact that this one doesn't turn probably tells me that the clutch system failed. So it's just spinning, but it's not rotating and cutting the magnetic field and all of that stuff like how an alternator works to be able to produce electricity to go charge the battery. So far I think we're onto the right path. Now the challenge is to put this back in, but it came out fairly easy once we pull that hose. So we're just going to do the reverse, get it in, put the belt on, start it up, and fingers crossed this works. All right, so this is the coolant loss that we had. I had covered up the AC compressor again, just to be careful. I didn't want any coolant going down into it or messing anything up. So that's very minimal. I doubt we'll have to bleed the system, but we'll see what happens. So yeah. All right, guys, so we're at the point. The new alternator is going back in, so let's get this done. And man, this is gonna be the go-to video for 2GR alternator swap on an MR2. Everything is the reverse of how we took it out, so let's go. So again, just be gentle, it goes right in. Now I'm gonna go to the bottom and we're gonna align this thing. All right, so we got the alternator back in. Bolt, the upper and the lower bolt is mounted and torqued. And then I plugged in the electrical connector in the back here, very tight quarters, probably can't see, and tightened up that 10mm 12 volt supply. So now I'm gonna cover it up, keep it safe. And the only thing I have left, I got the belt back on. So all I gotta do now is connect back the water hose and start this thing up, and should work. All right, so it's very important to remember if you block these lines to take them out. So there's the one that went on the thermostat side, and this is the one for the hose. So we remove those, we slide our coolant line back on, and now we're gonna tighten up the clamp. Again, minimal coolant loss here, so I don't anticipate we're gonna need to bleed anything. But the good thing is that, especially on this design, the fill reservoir is right above the thermostat neck here. So once I put fluid in, it's just gonna fill the gap between here and the top, and we really shouldn't get any air bubbles in this thing. So all in all, I think we are making very good progress. You know, I'm very happy I actually did this, because everything is intimidating before you try it. And honestly, this is not so bad in the grand scheme of things. Alright guys, so just to give you an idea, this is the coolant loss we had. So here's a cup, so very minimal coolant loss. So not really a big deal. So if you're worried about doing this and you gotta bleed and lose a lot of coolant, you really don't if you do it properly. Just plug those lines. So this, you can literally just add water. Now this was in a clean bucket. So I'm literally gonna put it back in the engine. And that should just fill whatever little gap we have there. There you go, see? It's already filled, so really just very, very minimal loss. So let's fire up and see how she sounds. All right, let's get the power back on. So from off all the way to all, we're gonna check the alternator, make sure we got power, and start this thing up. All right, power is back to the alternator. All right, we're gonna start her up. So there's our battery light that's been staying on. Got 12.1 volts on the battery right now. Battery light is off, guys. 13.8 volts. Car is working. That's the beauty of a 2GR FE. Alright guys, so that was it. Pretty quick video actually. Didn't think it would be that fast, but it went by fairly smooth. But the idea is I had a plan and executed on the plan and it worked really well. So the alternator is replaced. This video is probably going to be a placeholder for now because a lot of these swaps are fairly new and most guys put a new alternator in here. But again, this was a brand new alternator that failed. So if you get in a situation like this, now you know you don't have to drop the AC compressor. Just take the side vent out and you can manipulate and work this thing out pretty easy. Simply taking off the hose on that side and going through the vent. And yeah, so now awesome 2GR FE. I'm gonna go take it for a run. So far it's idle fine, it hasn't overheated, so no need to really burp anything because we didn't really lose any coolant in the process. But yeah, very happy with this, guys. I hope you're enjoying it. Very nice car. I'm going to show you a quick walk around now. We're going to close out. Catch you on the next one. Well guys, I went for a drive. I mean, this car is awesome. I mean, the 2GR is definitely a good platform. I am so motivated now to get my 2GR into my car. So, you know, this was, I think this kind of came right about the same time to get me motivated to put the engine in. But here's the car, very, very clean example. I think it's a 91 MR2 and very clean, and it just pulls. I mean, like everybody says on the 2GR builds, it just asks for more. You just give it more and it just wants to go. Feels nice and smooth. And again, this is just a very nice example of the car. So just giving you guys a quick walk around. I did drive it. Temperatures are good. Battery's charging. We got a nice 13.5 volts being charged with the alternator. Before we were right at 11 because it just wasn't doing anything, it was dead. But yeah, this is it. And who knows, maybe my red car gets a 2GR too, because I mean, this is definitely the way to go. I'd absolutely recommend to anybody who's interested. There you have it. It just idles so nice when you're, you know, like right here, it's idling so nice, and then when you get on it, man, this thing just sounds so freaking amazing. But that's gonna be it. Catch you guys on the next one.